Hello, everybody. It's Raina from Garden District Bookshop. Thank you for joining me again for Virtual Happy Hour. Tonight, I'm really excited to talk to a local poet, Ann Baker. She's a co-owner of Windowsill Pies, and she has this awesome book, I Am One of You. Nicole Eiden is going to come in here, and I'm going to click that button and say hi. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yes, thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you tonight. I know we've known each other for a few years. I think we met at the bookstore during an event of some kind, but then we ended up talking about kids and other stuff, and here we are.
As happens, yes. So thanks. Yeah, it's been great to get to know you over the years. And you said something funny the other day when I didn't have the copies of the books at the pie shop. And then I was like, oh, it's Wednesday. I was supposed to have the books. And you were like, that's better because then we have this opportunity to get to know each other. Because I think I said, I'm just going to really draw this out. And then I have to come over. And I was like, oh, that's such a wise response. I like that. It made me feel good too, forgetting.
Good. Yay. I mean, it's true. It was absolutely true. Like every time, like we haven't talked to each other very much over the years, but every time we do run into each other at some event or something, I feel like the 5 to 15 minutes we do talk is great. We always like have these things that connect and we get along with. And hi, Paul, and hi, Tara. Thank you for joining us. Everybody that's watching, if you have any questions or comments or anything for either one of us, type it in the comments and we will answer you in real time. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. That's always fun. So you can type that in the comments as well at any time and we'll answer you. So you're a poet. How long have you been writing poetry?
Well, the first time I knew I was a writer, I was in second grade, and we always had to come in. There was a story on the blackboard, and we had that green paper that had the big lines with the dashes in the middle, and you would copy the story, and then you would tape onto it the printer pages that had the holes up the side, and you would draw a picture. And you did have the option to write your own story, which I always did. And then I remember my schoolmate, Kate, said, how do you write your own story? How do you do that? And I just was like, oh, why wouldn't you? And I remember that moment so clearly. It's not a moment that I carried with me like, oh, I became a writer. It was just like, I always just had that moment in my head. And it was years later, I was like, oh yeah, that's when I realized, oh, that's what I like to do. So I guess I've been doing that since I was little, but it was at Ohio University where I was an undergrad that I was as depressed as most college kids, I suppose, in a lot of ways. And I just flocked to my poetry class. And I was the most annoying student because I was like, hey, your hours or your office hours. Hey, I'm actually not your student this semester, but here's some more poems. Hey, I'm signing up for your class. And I had 2 wonderful teachers there who I'm still in touch with. And one's visited New Orleans and the other I've seen when I've gone back. So both of them really helped me understand craft and how to move forward and develop that a lot better. And so I've just been going.
That's that moment when you find what you have a passion for. And I think for me that was in high school, but I had a teacher where she was my teacher in my freshman and sophomore year and then wasn't for my junior and senior year, but I'm like knocking on the door, like that same idea. And I believe that she loved it. But I can also, as I get older, see it from the other side. I was like, oh no, here she comes. Oh, I wanted to go home today.
I know.
But always so gracious, yes, and helpful with those things. So, also when you're writing like in second grade and you realize that you're doing something different than everyone else is doing, that moment when they're like, why are you writing? And you're like, why aren't you right? You're not writing your own story? You don't even know that you're doing something different than the other kids.
So yeah, that was probably the moment. Now I enjoy really watching my daughter. She's so different than me. She's got a brain more like her dad in so many ways, but she loves to write her own things. And the other day, we're trying to finish Anne of Green Gables, which has been this whole COVID long thing. I'm like, let's just finish it. And I'm reading it to her, and I was like, okay, we're almost done. We hopped into bed, and she grabbed her notebook that she got from Santa, and she said, Mom, I want to write while you read. I'm multitasking. I want to multitask. It's like, oh, God.
Yeah, that's not my, I compartmentalize. I'm like, I will do this for 10 minutes, this for 10 minutes, this for 10 minutes, or whatever it is. I don't do that either.
No, it's just nice to see, though. I'm like, okay, you like it too, so that's good.
Right. Yeah, learning right now with my son to pick and choose, not like, okay, if he wants to write while I read, that for me would be crazy pants. I'm like, oh God. But just going, it's cool. It's cool, son. Are you writing and listening? Good. Let it go, Mom. Let it go. That's me. So when you decided to write your book, put your poetry into a book, what was the catalyst for really putting it together and making a book out of it?
I didn't know that this was an opportunity that, at that point, I was not putting myself forward as a poet in public, really. I was, I'd worked as an assistant editor in film, and then I had started this pie company, and I was still waiting tables, I think, at the time. And I had taken a writing course with Constance Adler, who's now a dear friend. I took a couple with her, and then we started working together with a couple of us in Constance outside of class. And I wanted to submit some poems, and I asked everybody in the class to help me, or in the group. And one of my colleagues in this class, he really liked the poems, and he took them to his daughter, who had a small publishing company. And that's how the book came to be. Mississippi Sound Publishing and Kristen Nicase just took it on. So it's a very non-traditional story. Most people publish a book of poems through a contest. They are winners of a contest, and that's definitely gets you more clout. It's a better stepping stone in a lot of ways, but at the same time, hey, it's not. Someone chose to put their money into my book, and now I have a book, and I will always have that. And it's been wonderful. So I'm incredibly grateful. And it just shows what happens when you actually put your work out there. Hey, this is me. And then it gives people the opportunity to connect.
There's a thing I've been hearing a lot this year, but you kind of hear it, I think, at the beginning of every year when the New Year's resolutions come around. Instead of making a goal of how many acceptances you get, make a goal of how many rejections you get. And that kind of forces you to put yourself out there, right? If my goal is 20 rejections, I need to submit at least 20 times.
Yeah.
And that's a hard bit to get over, but not just with writing, but like with everything. If you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to get a yes.
I know.
But that's tough. That's a hard one.
Making connections with folks, and I'm a real believer in relationship in all the forms it comes in. I love showing up for people. And, when I did my reading at Garden District, I mean, it was so packed. I mean, Britton came out and said, like, he was kind of like, who are you? Like, he didn't say that. He was very gracious. He was like, no, he's so many books today. I'm like, I just have a lot of friends because I love people. That's all I can say, Britton.
All right, people like me. I mean,
that's the beauty of just being in relationship. And I just, that always excites me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember that. That's fun. Okay, wait, I have to take a minute. Annalise Miller is saying hi from Bavaria. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's awesome.
She's one of I lived in Scotland before I moved to New Orleans, and Annalise is from Australia originally, and she was one of my sweet friends there. So I'm really excited to see her name pop up.
Okay, so you're from Ohio, you spent time in Scotland, and now you're in New Orleans.
Yes.
How long have you been in New Orleans?
When I finished college, I knew I wanted to go to film school, and I was sure I didn't want to go anywhere cold. I was living in Scotland, and I applied to just warm schools, and that was in '98, and I moved here in '99. So UNO was just University of New Orleans was just really had an established film program. It wasn't what it is today, but I came here, and then I knew I never wanted to leave. I met my husband, who was a New Orleanian, and I'm in his studio right now. He's a violinist and audio engineer, and this is where I'm not. These musical instruments are not for me.
That is so much the story. I find that if you come here, maybe a long weekend or a week or so, you know you either love it or it's not for you, and that's okay too. I moved to New Orleans 2 months after Katrina.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we had a plan to move here the weekend Katrina hit. So we were living in Florida, and we had given our notice at our jobs and our apartment and everything, and we were like gonna come up here and look for apartments. That was it. And then we were watching the news and going, maybe we'll wait for the weekend. And then, with everything, with Katrina and everything, we were stuck with this. Were we gonna quit and stay there in Florida, or were we gonna go anyway?
And join,
Yeah.
And pretty brave at that time.
It felt at that point was like giving up, honestly. Like I didn't lose a house here. I didn't lose people here during Katrina, but I was watching from my laptop this new thing where you could watch news from a laptop. At that point, like that was very an early on being able to do that. And, it just felt like, giving up. This was where we were coming for our future. And I had never lived here before. I just visited a few times. And we joined the Red Cross. And we lived in a shelter in Goshen, Mississippi, and volunteered for weeks. And then we moved. We were just like, all right, let's put it all into you all. We'll figure it out. And here we are. So it was a very different, kind of Katrina story. That people have
coming towards, not displaced.
Yeah, but then and then it was like I knew, I felt that way from once I got here, and you're sort of, this is it. I've decided to make this my home, and I don't have any need or want to live anywhere else. I love it. So you also mentioned you sell pies.
I do.
you slipped that pie company. You started a pie company and then went right on with your.
Oh my goodness, do I sell pie? Yeah, I do. I have this wonderful business partner, Marielle Dupre, and 2011.
99 was school.
Yeah, 2011. We had worked with each other before Katrina. I love something that helps me is when I think the expression you don't make change till you're forced to. So I was working somewhere I wasn't myself. I just couldn't figure it out, and I said I got to do something. What can I sell? I'm not a salesperson. I was like, I can make pie. So I called up my friend who actually went to pastry school after Katrina. I was like, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And I thought she'd have to sleep on it because she's a very deliberate person. And she was like, yeah, on the phone. I was like, whoa, here. So that weekend we started testing recipes in my house, and we started right here. I have a pretty good sized kitchen for New Orleans house, and we just started. And that Thanksgiving, it was like coworkers, friends, family, and we had a menu that was printed. We were baking so much in my house that the floor was so slick with butter the dog couldn't even walk through. It was insane. There was a moment I ran to my neighbors. I'm like, I need to put this in your oven. And people are coming to pick their pies up in 45 minutes. We did it. And then the next year we kept growing. Got into Whole Foods for a little, that was a big step. then we won this Women Entrepreneur Fellowship at New Orleans Entrepreneur Week that the Junior League put on. That was a huge step. It just gave us so many like skills to pitching skills and like business concepts. Like we hadn't even really like, I don't know. And then we got on Cooking Channel's Sugar Showdown, which they flew us to Canada. That was like all those shows on TV that my daughter watches now. It's exactly the same. I was very impressed. And we won. And once again, like everything like is like a little building, a little building, a little building. And so we always wanted to have a shop. It was just, it's a huge jump from where we were. Like financially, just so big of a steep. And then we finally found a spot and rented it September 2019. And it took over a year of renting that space on 4714 Freret Street because it, you know, construction issues and City Hall was hacked and everything was shut down, like no permits, nothing. And then, as we all know, everything stopped in March with the pandemic. And so, you know, there were times, honestly, like I knew we were going to open because so much had been put towards that goal. And I understand centrifugal force in that way. Like things move. And if you keep on, you'll get there. But there were moments I was like, I don't know how this ugly shop is ever going to become the beautiful Windowsill Pies. And my husband came over there and like fixed a lot of stuff. And, you know, we did so much work. We had hired help too. And it opened. And here we are 3 months later.
Yay! And it is beautiful. It is beautiful.
I do really like the space.
Yeah, everybody, you have to stop by. Right now, you know, they're open, obviously COVID restrictions and stuff. You can go in, grab your pie. You guys have a couple of tables out front, didn't you?
We do. You did. Some lovely orange tables.
Yeah.
And we sanitize everything.
Oh, yeah.
After every person. Yeah, we're really serious.
Yeah. And I got like 3 hand pies and I brought them home. And I was so good. I did not eat them in the car because I was trying to bring them home for my family so we could all like taste test all of them. I did a very good job and they kept very well. They were all perfect when I got them home. So you can also grab some to go home with you.
Yeah, it's been really great and fun. So it's neat to see something become a reality. And people are so excited. I know it's like with COVID, people are really just excited to be part of something fresh, new that's working. But people just love pie. I mean, it just makes people happy on such a deep level, and it's actually really hard to find good pie in the world. I mean, as American pie is, it's hard to find, you know. It's so people. I have never been as delighted about something as sometimes the people come in. I mean, the joy. It's just it helps me. I'm like, I'm glad this is like a service. Thank you. I mean, like, okay.
It's really true. Like if you go into coffee shops or different places, you see bakery items like cakes and croissants and different things like that all the time, everywhere. But a good slice of pie is not. You got to know where to go.
Yeah, no, it's true, and it's this sort of the thing I like about it too. Like I would never be. I mean, I like making cake for my family or whatever, but I wouldn't be so stressed to be like a cake maker because there's a perfection that's expected from a wedding. I mean, just transporting a wedding cake. Oh my God.
Yeah, the stress of that.
Pie, when Judy Walker wrote an article about us, it was like her headline was like the imperfection, perfect imperfection. But it's like this idea, I can't remember exactly, but it really spoke to me because it's like, oh yeah, I love that ability to have imperfection be part of it and part of the beauty of it. Because that's just how I am. Like,
well, that's just life. It's just life, you know.
Life.
Sometimes you
like putting that in the forefront,
right? You put all the ingredients in there and you stick it in the oven. You take it out and you're like, wow, that's not what I had intended. As long as it tastes good, we're good to go. And 90% of the time, I find it does. You just slop it out onto the plate. It's fine. Maybe you.
I saw that. I did see that Facebook. You did do a post about some sort of tart you made that was like soup. I think, Raina, I'm sorry.
So if you're not on NOLA Twitter, so New Orleans has a bunch of people who use Twitter really regularly. And we have our own hashtag NOLA Twitter. Look it up. You will find all different kinds of things. I mean, people just like helping people out, giving people rides places.
I didn't know.
You need to borrow this pan or that thing or whatever, you can find it. And good information, you can hashtag NOLA Twitter, what's happening, there's traffic on this road. And within 10 minutes, someone will be like, oh, I heard this. Oh, I see this. And here's the link to an article. I'm like, wow, it is really an active community. And they put together a great NOLA Twitter bake-off leading up to Christmas. And so it was between
missed this.
Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was like every Sunday, and there was a theme. And I'm not a huge baker, but I looked up this tart recipe. I'm like, I could do that. So one of the themes was a tart, and so I did. And I'm like, mine looks like crap. It tasted amazing.
I'm glad.
Amazing. But the picture was like this. I'm looking at the picture of like the tart and the recipe on the online that I found, and I'm looking at mine and going, well, I'm gonna lose.
You're like, nailed it.
Exactly. It's exactly like nailed it on next Netflix show. Like, I am not gonna win based on a picture alone, but it is tasty, so I'm gonna take that as a personal win.
Good. Yeah. Well, glad.
But yeah, I definitely recommend, if you are in New Orleans, look up hashtag NOLA Twitter.
I will check that out.
Yeah. Check them out for sure.
Thanks for the recommendation.
I'm going to go back through some of our comments here. Claudia from Southeast Ohio says, Niam. Oh, I'm going to mispronounce.
That's her daughter. It's a Gaelic name. Niamh.
See, yeah, Niamh. It's beautiful.
I think I said it right, Claudia. Irish they don't use letters the same way. Letters do not equate sound at all. It's just a crapshoot how it's going to sound.
We were even more interesting than Bert and Ernie. That I'm going to take that as a very high compliment.
I am honored.
And not ask which one's Bert and which one's Ernie. I'm just going to go with that.
And I see my friend Tara D. She's a comedian, and she's really funny, and she is on there. So hi, Tara, and Rance. Thank you for showing up.
Awesome. Michael, what are you drinking? Hello from our dining room. This cocktail is good. If you're still with us.
That's my husband, actually, in the other room.
Wow. Hello from your dining room.
Yeah.
Got it.
So he's watching it as the regular folks are watching it. And I'm drinking, and I made one up for him. A bowl of Marnier. Wait, excuse me. I'm laughing because I really struggle with French, and it's a very simple term. Boulevardier.
I love it. That's the way I would pronounce it too.
It's a basically I made it with 1.5 parts whiskey. We always have a handle of makers in the house, hopefully with a backup. Thank you, Costco. And 1 part Campari, and then 1 part sweet vermouth, and a little orange twist. And I'm loving it too. Toot-toot.
I have made myself today a brandy milk punch. I saw on Commander's Palace's Instagram, I think, that they are selling their brandy milk punch by the half gallon now.
Okay.
I did not go get one yet, but I made my own from home.
Okay.
Who inspired you? That's right.
Might try that. So I do love brandy milk punch, actually. So yeah, it's hard to always, I've been enjoying like trying new things, and with COVID, we did this thing for Christmas with the Good Trouble Network. They were like they donated the money to the ACLU, but they had this thing where you could get cocktails delivered to your house Christmas Eve. I was like, I have been working like a dog for Windowsill Pies. I can't wait to get off and have really amazing craft cocktails that I would never make myself delivered to my home. Like, I would never do that, but it's like COVID, and these are things that it's like a
holidays,
gift.
and
you do this, and you're helping people, and you're treating yourself. It's like all these wonderful little like discoveries within this horrible time.
How was it? Was it all?
Oh yeah, I got the Santa. It was based on the Blood and Santa, which is based on the Blood and Sand, which is a I believe it's a cognac drink, and then the Nightmare Before Churchill. It was like Winston Churchill's name and Nightmare Before Christmas together. I don't want to bore people with trying to remember that name.
Okay,
Mike and I enjoyed
Brain is like, I have no idea what would be in that drink.
it. Was like pear and gin, and I all I know is it was delivered.
Right. At this point, you're like, you've invented this drink and you're bringing it to me. I will drink it. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, there's a lot of so that's to me is something that I've enjoyed, is just like people's creativity and trying new things and having them delivered.
One of something I definitely like miss. I don't go out that much. I didn't pre-COVID. I don't at all right now. But one of the things is always fun when I do end up going out with a friend or a girlfriend or something, I'm like, I always look at those cocktail menus. I'm just pick one that has a good name or has, some a fruit that I'm like, oh yes, that, and just order it. Cause it's just like these little trying new things in life. I'm like, worst case scenario, I don't like it that much. I still have a drink and a good time.
That's a good approach. Yeah. Worst case scenario, I still have a drink.
Right. I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to order this again. That's all. That's my big loss today.
No, those are all good quality. Like, back to our other conversations, just like our earlier conversation, rather, is just putting yourself out there, trying something new, and just being okay with the fact that, hey, it might not work out.
Yeah.
But it might. And that's
it might be my new favorite drink.
That's where the magic happens.
So Paul Warner is asking if you want to read a poem.
Oh, I don't see. Oh, yeah. I would love to. Funny enough, I have a book here. Paul, I can't see I don't see that little note. I might not be able to see the
comments. I can scroll through them. It's up a little bit, but
okay. I see what you're saying. You're seeing something different. No worries. I would love to read a poem. All
right.
Thank you for the ask. Let me think real quick. First of all, this is my book, and this is my dear grandmother right here. And this one. She was wonderful. And go ahead.
Oh, I was reading your dedication, and you were saying that this picture that's on the cover is one of the things you grabbed when you evacuated for Katrina.
Oh, that's true. My grandmother played basketball in 1929 for Oakfield, which is in upstate New York, her high school. And I learned that back then there was full court basketball for girls. And then at some point, when my mom was in school, like girls all of a sudden couldn't play full court. It was like too taxing or something on them. And before Title IX, I guess. And then they did like half court. And so to see this picture and to know my grandmother she was so thoughtful and always kind. And then when Ohio State basketball would come on, she almost swore a few times. I saw her almost swear. She didn't.
She held back.
She almost did. So, I dedicated this book to both my grandmothers, who were very different, but both really amazing people. I'm going to read one called, My Blank White Bumper Sticker. I'm going to read this one because a few of my high school friends are online, and back in those days, I made my own bumper stickers. And, because I had a lot of thoughtful things to say that the world needed to hear. I made them and then put plastic. I think I took them to Kinko's, to get them plasticked. But still, the rain would seep through and there would be no words. So this is called so I would drive around with these blank bumper stickers. My blank white bumper sticker. Still on my car now. I like leaving things the way they happen. Rain seeped through plastic, smeared the words blank. You need age to arrive. You cannot just create a diner in 2012, paint it shine to reflect the sun and everything else, expect the street to believe it is 60 years old. Detail. I feared lockjaw, the randomness of things, a brush with rusty screw on the seesaw, fatal mouth peanut butter freeze up. Detail. When I was 8, my hair was straight. I turned 13, agitating hair looped up in my blind spot, now tighter after tighter, curl in motion tells every woman at the Xerox store my state, constantly searching for a pen. Detail. I played on the Dodgers. Red shirt T-ball, shortstop between pinpoint positions of second, third, make a note. Detail. When I'm asked to be there at 7, I say 7, think 7, I'll arrive. I can't say my alarm clock is accurate. I've been compared to it. Measure last minutes before being where, with elastic, stretch around all the time you need to get there, preferably with your hair combed. Detail. I wonder about the electrical lineman I met in the nursing home, how he felt supplying energy all over Morgan County for its very first time. From those poles, his delicate fingers touched electricity. Lights glowed from each house. He surveyed his work from 100 feet up. Detail. The Nile River is 4,258 miles long. Who measures the longest river in the world? With what do they measure? The length a shadow casts across the lawn, divide or multiply by, arrive at height of building. I want to hold the wrinkle of my hand, look back years, and remember the shovel. I want to be the pole, run currents directly to the skillet. I want to be a hammer and pound, make noise, see where my energy goes. A blacksmith has the horseshoes to prove his work.
Yay.
Thanks, everybody. I mean, that poem to me, I wrote it a long time ago, but I just come back to it's like the blacksmith has the horseshoes to prove his work. And that's kind of one of the things about the pie shop. It's like, I have something to prove all this time I just spent. Unlike being a writer, it's like, a lot of time goes by and a lot of work goes, and you don't always have something to show for it. So there's just something to be said for valuing all kinds of work.
We did an event a few years ago with Rick Bragg. And one of the things he said has really stuck with me. Is very similar to your the line about horseshoes. His brother, I believe, is a contractor, and he builds houses. I guess he started out as a brick mason, and he's a contractor.
He's worked his way up.
If I'm remembering that story exactly correctly. But he told a story about driving through his hometown and seeing these houses that his dad had built and that his brother had built, and these real structures that they had helped on and they had built. And then he has this stack, of his books. Rick Bragg's won Pulitzer Prize. He has maybe 7 books, and 7 books stack up just about like this. And he's like, this is my life's work.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how hard he works, and no matter what awards he wins, no matter what accolades people give him, he'll never feel like it's worth as much as when
I think Rick Bragg does feel that because he's amazing. But I hear you. I mean, people love to have. I mean, that's why do you think people love to donate money with their name on a brick?
Right.
Like, put your name on a brick. Okay. People love to put money into buildings. My dad always said that to me. My dad always said these things to me out of the corner of his mouth that I was like, he's like, people love to put money into buildings. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. They do. Like, ask someone to help someone out, and they're like, meh. Oh, put your name on a brick. Sign me up.
Right? And you will go out of your way. If you have your name on something just as simple and silly as that, you'll go out of your way to find it. True. I can't remember. It was my grandmother. They did that. They had a brick in this walkway leading up to this bank, and I'm like,
nice.
And it was whatever. They were helping. I think they gave money to like the downtown of the little town we lived in, like their reconstruction project, and so they got their name on this brick. And I remember as a little kid, like going and looking at this brick, and of course, I was maybe 8. It was great fun. Great fun finding this.
But
brick.
It did mean something.
It does.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I never thought about it really in that context. But yeah, we went downtown to find the brick. Once they got the paper that told them kind of where it was. I'm like, we did that.
That's us. That's our brick.
Right? We contributed.
we do like something tangible to hold on to. But at the same time, I really believe in valuing so many kinds of work. We all I speak about myself too. We all undervalue the work of others sometimes, and we make it simpler than it is, or whatever. But it's not. Every job has so many layers to it. And I was just talking to my hairdresser about this the other day, and I wish I should have thought to prepare this. I didn't think about it, but there's this. My mom had given me this book that she got at a conference, and the writer was on that show On Being in the past few years with Krista Tippett, and he wrote this book about carpenters, servers, and hairdressers, and what happens in their brain while they do their work. And I've waited tables so long. When I read this book, it was like 10 years ago. I had never seen someone write what goes through my mind when I do this very working class physical job that I've done since I was 16. And I just felt so valued, like reading that it was like intellectualized. And I was like, I do that. I do that. And it just really, especially not waiting tables anymore. I just always want to keep remembering like what goes on in all these people's lives to make their work. I believe in that and just valuing that. My daughter said to me about someone picking up the trash. She said, "Mom, I don't want to do that job." And I said, "Yeah, that's okay. But they do an important job, Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just always think about work.
Well, yeah, and there's a place for everybody, and we need all of that, all of the positions and all of the different kinds of people to work together for us all to move forward. Belittling any type of person or type of job doesn't get us anywhere.
No.
We're all together in it. We're all together.
There's that Philip Levine poem, What Work Is. I don't know if you're familiar, but I got to see him read it. It's just like, he's from Detroit, and I have a lot of I'm from Ohio, but I have my dad's from up near Lake Erie, and I have family in Toledo, which is like all sort of going that way. And it's just like all about his brother who's like singing this Italian aria and then goes into the factory. And there's pieces that it's like, if I could have written that.
Yes.
I said that to a potter recently, Rachel DePaw. She's a local potter. She's amazing. And I was like, your work is what I would make if I could do that. Like, that's the highest compliment I can give.
That is one of the things I will be doing after COVID is over. I put it off for years and years. I want to take pottery classes. I did pottery in high school, and it's one of those things, like, I loved it then, and then just, good
for you.
Do it. And I've looked up classes, and, and again, it was like, it didn't fit that time frame, or it didn't fit that budget or whatever. And then COVID hit, and there's these few things, that you're like, I wanted to do them, and I just never got around to it. And now all of a sudden I can't. And they're like at the top of my list of things as soon as.
Well, just throwing this out there, my dear employee Minot, she takes a pottery class in the Bywater on Thursday nights, and it's very social distance, and I could find out the spot.
Definitely find out the spot, because I would look into that, because the couple of places that were on my radar before, they are only like people who had come there before, and to use their studio, you can go and sign up and use their studio for their time, but they're not really taking a bunch of new people to teach classes or anything like that. So I would look
this
at that.
This is made by Rachel DePaw, who lives in New Orleans. Isn't it amazing?
That's beautiful.
We've had this. We bought it at Jazz Fest, but I know her, and my husband bought me a bowl for Christmas. It's amazing.
That's beautiful.
He just brought that in.
He's an excellent assistant.
He is. That's why we're married. He's such a great partner.
So we have a pie question. Marianne Miller asks,
hey, Marianne.
Can you talk about what you think hand pies mean to New Orleans? Windowsills are divine, of course, but do you feel like we're on par with the rest of America? American hand pie culture? First of all, that's a thing? I'm not a pie connoisseur necessarily. So
Marianne, okay. So first of all, obviously I feel like I'm going to preface this with the whole Hubig's thing. A little pre-story. When I was in film school, my first big film, I shot at the Hubig's factory, and we put a little girl on the conveyor belt who was 6. Hubig's totally was like, sure. And then they were like, what's going on? And then they're like, you guys have been here a long time. Can you finish up? And the girls like coming down the conveyor belt. They were amazing. It's a great scene. I have a lot of fondness. So when Hubig's burned down, obviously I had a real attachment besides just their pies, which are wonderful. So the other day, I guess this was maybe sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas, someone placed a pre-order online. He came to pick it up. I didn't know him by name. And he came in, he said, hi, I'm the owner of Hubig's. Of course, I was like, oh my gosh, let me just add an extra gold bow to this or whatever. And we had this great conversation. He was incredibly gracious. And I said, do you remember that film student who put a kid on the conveyor belt? Because I think you were there. And he's like, I do. And it was fun. But I read, I say, I don't know. I only know my, since 1999, relationship with hand pies here. I read Morgan Bapp's article. I think it was for the Oxford American about Hubig's, which really helped inform me of what a local person who grew up with Hubig's at the Ace Hardware, just picked him up for a quarter or whatever, experienced. But I think I don't know. I mean, I've had some hand pies at Gracious. I don't know how many people are actually doing them. And I agree with Raina. I'm not outside of regular pies. I don't know. We're going to have an offline conversation, Mary Ellen, about this subculture that's going on that I'm not well aware of. Because I think of hand pies as British pasties, or in Australia. Maybe Annalise can chime in about Australian hand pies. I feel like these are cultures that have really come up, had this as people would take them to lunch. I always heard that in England people took them in the mines or whatever. Their wives made them because they didn't have sandwich. I don't know why they didn't make sandwiches. That'd be a lot easier. But I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Okay, so somebody needs to do some research on, first of all, hand pie culture in general.
Hashtag hand pie culture. That's my new hashtag, Marianne.
There you go. So now this is I love research. Research, I could just sit and go down rabbit holes of fun research all day long.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to look this up. I'm going to find out more about hand pie culture in general. I'm writing it down on my legal pad right now that I don't forget. If I find any revelatory information, I will pass it along.
Well, I mean, I find a lot, my mother and father have this friend who lives in Detroit, and she collects articles for everyone in her life. And then every quarter she sends you a manila envelope with things she's clipped from the New York Times or wherever. And she has never met my husband, and yet he gets things in this for him. I don't know how she does it. Well, I just got a package 2 days ago, and it had hand pies in it. So I think we're on to something here. It was hand pie recipes from different publications. I was like, oh, should I be making all these?
Are you telling me something?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
I was excited. But yeah, I mean, ours are baked. A lot of people fry, which is also really good. We, try to make something that is different than our pie by the slice, and we have the opportunity to have sweet and savory come together in a different way too, with apple cheddar, which is my grandma always put cheddar cheese. She was from upstate New York, always put cheddar cheese on her apple pie. So my business partner wasn't really aware of that as a thing, and some people come into the shop, they know what that is, and other people are like, that's so weird. So I call it the Yankee apple cheddar. But yeah, I mean, in someone just said something on Instagram, we just had we just love the gumbo hand pie. I was like, gumbo hand pie? We don't have that. Oh, it's our crawfish boil hand pie. I think I must have described it to them because we make a roux, and it's really non-traditional. To put it's not like a regular crawfish pie from Natchitoches that's fried and just mostly crawfish and that roux. That's all that it is. Ours is really different. So I guess I don't know. I feel a little bit I feel like there's an experimental level with the hand pie because it has to be satisfying, and then it has to be something that can be scooped into this form, and then it has to be the right proportions. That all has to come together. And it's challenging, honestly, to find something.
So how do you guys come up with new ideas and recipes?
Okay, that's a great question. Some things come together, like we have a vision, like very few times, like it comes together. But like with the crawfish boil pie, I had this thing I wanted to make it, and then like I kind of pulled together some ideas, but like really then just workshopped it until it becomes what it is. A lot of times, people like request something, and we're like, oh, we don't make that, or do we? So
we might next week check back.
yeah. So we definitely when I look back at our recipes, I say to Marielle, I'm like, where did this originate? She's like, I don't remember, because she tries to like put some of our founding ideas or source materials on the recipe.
I could definitely see a cookbook in the future somewhere. If you kept track of these like stories and the different iterations of these pies, I could see that as being very interesting.
We got an offer for one, and it just shows that like we like were so in quagmire that we like and didn't feel that we had enough to make a book, that we like put it off. And I just hope that that opportunity is still out there for the future, because yeah, it was like, it's tough because there's this book, Sister Pie. I think that's what she calls her book. She's in Detroit. This is the third Detroit reference. I don't know where this is coming from. She had a book that was like a bestseller. I think this publishing company was like, this is a seller. But I pray that the opportunity is still ready for us when we're ready for it.
Is it Lisa Ludwinski? Does that sound right? Yes. A big-hearted bakery in Detroit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Pie.
She's pretty cool. I haven't met her, but she does really great things, and it's pretty awesome.
All right. Well, there's the link to
Sister Pie. She's doing well. So yeah, I would love
definitely.
That's definitely a goal. I definitely see that as like a next step.
From a bookseller point of view, I could definitely see a book like that selling for sure. You mix sort of the story of how you came up with this recipe idea and all that mixed with the actual recipe and a couple of pretty pictures.
Okay.
So we could sell you.
It writes itself.
That's right. There you go. Okay, Fran has a question regarding the pastry.
I have a very strong opinion on this. Okay.
Butter or shortening or both?
So first of all, for pie dough specifically, not tart dough, I believe in half and half. So what we do at Windowsill Pies is we use half Plugra butter, which is a European style butter, which means it has a higher butter fat content, more flavor, higher quality butter. But we use half shortening. What we choose is a organic, sustainable palm shortening. So it is not a devastating rainforest. It's from Colombia, and it's grown on farms that are just for this particular product. And that's what we used when we were at Whole Foods. It's Whole Foods approved, which is a higher level of, eco-friendliness. Why? Well, butter is the flavor, and shortening gives it the texture, the flakiness. So lard's great too, but you can end up with meaty or bacony. All butter's great too, but then it doesn't have that light flaky texture. And if you're using something like Crisco, you have a great texture, but you're lacking flavor. So I just really believe in the half and half. Now, with our tart dough, that is an all butter crust, but that's more of like a cookie, like a sugar cookie crust. So it's a little bit different. But yes, I believe in half and half, and I'll go to my grave. I'm not smiling.
You're very serious about this. It's good. All right. Noted. No jokes about the butter and the shortening. Always a mixture.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's also easy to roll. Like when we first started, we used Plugra and Crisco. And we got into Whole Foods, and Crisco, no. Because I think there's a lot of issues with it, but one of it was the trans fats at the time. And we were introduced to this. Spectrum is the brand we use. And you can find it at Whole Foods. We buy the huge vats of it from other places. But at first, it's different. So we made all these beautiful crimps in our pecan pie, and we'd put it in the oven, and it would just crimp up and look great. Well, once we started using the Spectrum, it stayed cold so long that when we did the same process, we put it in the oven, and like all our amazing crimps then were like, bruh. And I like cried. It was like, we'll never have a pretty pie again. It's impossible. Just to meet Whole Food standards, it'll never look good. Well, no, we just had to change our process and change some different, like where it comes from, is the fridge or the freezer, yada, yada. But regardless, it stays cold longer. So when you have butter, and if you had an all butter crust in New Orleans in August, forget about it. Forget about it. It's just like a mess. So shortening also stays cold a little longer than butter, and cold is your friend when you're rolling pie dough. The difference of 2 degrees is enormous. That's what really helped me understand, not that I needed this to understand climate change, but people are like, oh, what's 2 degrees? Like, I can tell 2 degrees so clearly in the kitchen. 2 degrees. It's like the difference between I'm a beginner or I'm really good at this.
Wow. Like the chemistry behind cooking at all that took me a bit to get. I was not a chef in any way when I moved out of my parents' house. When I moved out on my own, I was barely keeping myself alive with food. And then having my son change that, because at some point he stops eating baby food and you go, crap, I got to figure out something to feed this kid that isn't just chicken nuggets and peanut butter. I guess that's on me. Yeah. And I was like, oh, let me start trying things. And really, it took me a while to learn that the chemistry behind it is where I was going wrong, because it says simmer 5 minutes. I'm like, whatever it's for, no big deal. I'm ready to move to the next step, right? But those things matter, and learning why they matter and things like that. Yeah. So 2 degrees can make a lot of difference.
Yeah, no, it's true. It can make you sick or not sick.
Right? Yeah. 2 minutes can make a lot of difference, make you sick or not sick.
You're always tempted, like if it's like chicken pot pie or something, it's like, has it hit 165? Blah, blah, blah. It's like that matters.
Yeah.
It is interesting. It is interesting.
So Annalise says that Australians have the highest per capita meat pie consumption in the world. It's a quote, so it's from somewhere. She's quoting this. She has found real meat pie information.
Thank you. She is an Australian, so I trust the information.
Yes. And the 4 and 20 pies, which I Googled, by the way, and I can actually...
I'll have to check that out, Annalise. Thank you for that info.
This Wikipedia article, take it with a grain of salt, it's Wikipedia. But there's information on 4 and 20. What 4 and 20 meat pies.
I will check it out, Annalise.
So everyone can now do their own meat pie research.
Yeah, no, meat pies are awesome.
That's good. So going back through and making sure I have.
I appreciate everyone chiming in.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great when everybody just comments and asks questions and everything. It keeps us going. And Michael shared the film with the Hubig's Pie Factory shots in it. So go back up in the comments. You can check that out as well.
It's at the beginning. It's at the beginning, so you don't have to sit through a lot.
So what's the film about? Is it about?
Film is about. It's called La Cuoca, which means the cook, and it is about a widower who can't cook, and hires someone to cook who also can't cook, and he's grieving, and she's looking for who she is in the world, and they meet each other halfway and help each other.
So you said you went to school for filmmaking. Are you making any films now?
I have made films, and I've worked a little in film, but I've been working on a screenplay for a while, and that's one of my 2021 goals is to finish that. So I'm pretty serious about it, and it's about a violinist. My husband is a violinist, so I've heard a lot of violin over the years. And I'm really trying to get that done. That would be wonderful if I finished that in a way that I was proud of. So working on it.
Is that a feature length or a short film or?
Feature length.
That's exciting.
I want to write TV so bad. I just, when you're in school, like back then, TV writing wasn't a thing to study. And it mystifies me. I would pay so much money to be in an awesome writing room and see what happens. I don't quite get the structure of series, but it totally amazes me. And just like a working parent, like I have such a short time to watch things in the evening, and like TV is meeting that, and it makes me feel terrible because I love films. But it's
you have both. Yeah, you have both. And I like now that there are more TV shows or short series. I mean, there's this new short series thing
and that's
too.
beautiful. And I feel like in TV, like it's so film market, there's so much overseas money and they have to sell it overseas. So they just have to make these things where it's like that aren't like you can if you look at who's in TV shows these days, there are so many roles for older women. I think that's like a good focus to talk about this. It's like there are still so few roles in film for older women, yet they're dominating the TV world. There's so many lovely, amazing, deep, raw, awesome roles that are being written for older women because we are watching. But it's like the overseas market who's buying films, and it's like they literally just want Fast and Furious #7 sometimes. And so those roles aren't there. And so I think TV, that's why TV is, there's a lot of freedom there because people are watching here too. So that's my 2 cents on TV writing and older women.
And so many outlets for it now too. I mean,
totally.
You go back even like 20 years, there were so fewer outlets.
We all watch the same shows, we all watch. And I kind of miss that though for my kid though, because it's like that shared culture. And I know she has that similar shared culture to some extent, but it's like we all, like I can talk to people my age and it's like, oh, the Wonder Years. Were you there? Or like Northern Exposure, or maybe like even like the Brady Bunch or something. It's like we all have that shared, but like everything else today, there's such a niche culture, so for good and bad. I wish that, I don't know. It's like when I watched 30 Rock, I thought it was amazing and everyone I knew was watching it. Well, when you look at actually how many people in America watch that show, it's shockingly low.
Really?
Yeah. Just people
I watched it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that makes sense too. It is more like that. Like my son has friends and they watch the same show, but they watch it by choice. Like they're in the same little group of liking these same things. So those 5 friends will have seen this show because they'll go to Netflix or they'll go to YouTube or wherever and they'll watch it. But yeah, that shared idea of now if he goes to somewhere someone who's in a different clique, for example, they might not even know what he's talking about.
Right.
Where if you go back to when we were in school, your friends knew, and even those people, maybe they didn't like it as much, but they've seen the Brady Bunch. Like,
right.
We're
all watching Roseanne. Yeah.
Right. It's on. There's nothing else to do. And those are, the same 5 shows are on in everyone's house at the same, on Tuesday night or whatever. So I guess that's what you watched.
Yeah. So it is interesting, I mean, it has its positives and negatives, I think. I like you said, more outlets for artistic creativity, more platforms for people to get in and all that. So that's all good. So I think ultimately better, but not just the major networks. But yeah, I don't know.
That's a whole different, like we could keep going.
We could keep going
on that train of thought for sure. I definitely want to bring up before we end, you told me that you are going to be on Great Day, Louisiana. Is that
yes, right? January 15th. It was already recorded. We're ready to go. Little peek inside the back of house, which nobody gets to see really over there at Windowsill Pies because it's behind the wall.
Literally, you can't see it. So
my husband Mike came and like set us all up. So like all we had to do was worry about actually baking, which was great, and answering questions. But it was really fun. So I'm excited about it.
So it's going to air on the 15th.
Yeah.
I don't know what time of day Great Dane.
It's a mid-morning show.
Okay. So in the morning sometime. Look at WWL.
It's that second cup of coffee time.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining me, Nicole. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, and thank you to all the folks out there who like spent an hour with us.
Yes, thank you all for coming, watching, commenting, telling us where you're from, talking about pies. It was great. If you want a copy of Nicole's book, I put the comment earlier with the link to it. You can get it from Garden District Bookshop's website, of course. And check out Windowsill Pies. I also put that comment.
Thank you.
The link to the website there in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you guys all next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Anna. Bye, everybody.